What's going on, guys? My name's Connor, and today I have a review for you guys on the Louis Vuitton Damier Azur watch case. All right, so any watch collector is going to need a watch case when they're traveling, or maybe when they're presenting an item, or even just to make the pictures look a little bit cooler if they don't have the box for the watch. And one of the cases that a lot of people talk about, especially in the Rolex groups that I'm in, is this case right here. So I thought, why not do a review on it? So for those of you guys who are considering whether or not to go with maybe like a Wolf, or maybe like a cheaper one on Amazon, or maybe considering going higher end with the Louis Vuitton watch case, I just want to go over some pros and cons, all the details of this, and so you guys can kind of make a decision whether or not you guys think it's worth paying the premium that it costs for a Louis Vuitton watch case. All right, so let's get right into it. Alright guys, so I just want to give you guys a close look of this watch case. So obviously the Damier Azur pattern on it. You guys can see the black and gray. And you guys can also see that it's in pretty great condition. I've used it a decent amount of times, but I really take care of my stuff, so there's not too much wear to be shown. You guys can see the edges are still crisp on both sides. And it's pretty clean. I mean, like, if you're traveling with this, I think it looks sick. I love this watch. I love how it looks, especially. But I'm also going to get into the details of it, so for those of you guys who care a lot more about functionality of it. So opening it up, I'm just going to pop out right here, and there's only one hole, just so you guys know. There's no like adjusting it to loosen it, but it's a perfect size because your watches aren't going to be stretching it out and making you have to go to a different hole. But taking this part out, you guys can see the inside. This part is also in very good condition. You guys can see Louis Vuitton Paris, made in France. Crisp edges, nice leather. And then this material right here, I forgot what it's called, but it's essentially the material like when you're at a jewelry store and you set your watch on the counter and they put out this little mat. That's essentially what this feels like. It keeps the face totally protected. If you drop this watch case while you have watches in it, I'm not worried about it getting scratched unless you really dropped it that hard. Then you guys can see the inside. It's the same material right here and under it, and the actual inner part that's going to hold the watches in it. And then I'll show you guys underneath it what it looks like. Yeah, the exact same material, very good condition. Tiny bit dirty, not really, but yeah. And then this part right here, one of the things that you guys might notice on it is, I did say that I've put watches on it quite a few times, but you guys can see that there's no marks. You can't see exactly where I put the watches, because one of the things that I love about this is that I noticed even after a few times where I've held watches on it, it hasn't like adjusted to it, which I like it hasn't fit to it. Like, there's not going to be like creases right here, here, and here where I would hold the watches. Like, it still holds it very nicely, you know? And so it still holds it really firmly to the point where it won't move. And I'm going to get into that in a second when I put some watches on it. But one of the things that you guys should really take away from this when you guys are considering buying this is, one of my worries when I was deciding, hey, am I going to get this or maybe like a Wolf or just another regular one for cheap on like Amazon or something, one of my worries was, are my watches going to touch each other when I'm moving? And that was one of my biggest worries. I was worried, is it going to touch at the beginning, or maybe after a few times using it, is this part going to start to go in to the point where it's not tight anymore and my watches are touching each other on the crowns? That was one of my biggest worries, and I'm sure some of you guys who are watching this are worried about that as well. I have not had that issue, and I've used this probably around like 30 times, and there's obviously nothing there. It still looks perfect. But let me get some watches on it. You guys can see, if you guys have not seen my recent reviews, I did reviews on the two watches I'm going to show you today. This is obviously the early 2000s Submariner 14060. I'm just going to clip this on really quickly. Bag, boom, boom. Before I get another one on, I just want you guys to notice that this one only has one link off. So for those of you guys who are considering like what's tight on this, this is one link off, and it's fine. You know, like, I'm shaking it up, I'm not touching it, nothing's holding it, but this part right here, it's fine. It's not moving at all. And then, so you guys can get a further idea on how tight it is, I'm gonna get my GMT, which has had no links taken off. This is a fully linked watch. So let me just put this on right here. And so before I even get the third watch on this, you guys can see I have these close together. Nothing. I'm not even worried. I would not want to scratch these watches, but this is my confidence in this because they're not moving at all. And that is a big plus. That's one of the biggest things you guys should care about when you guys are getting because these are considered travel cases. And when you're traveling, obviously you're moving. And so this should be one of your biggest worries. Not just like, hey, is this girl gonna look twice when she sees that I have Louis Vuitton? It should be more like, am I protecting these watches? You know? And so yeah, not moving at all, perfectly tight. Even when I take this off later on, there's not gonna be a mark here and you guys will see that. But this is one of the cons that I've came up with. Something super, super small, like this Apple Watch right here, which is pretty tight. It's actually not mine, it's a girl's, but it doesn't fit on this. It doesn't fit on it at all. So that's kind of a con, but at the same time, it's a pro because you guys probably aren't going to be carrying Apple Watches on this, probably Rolexes or something of that sort. And I don't know. Actually, let me bring this back just so you guys can see how many watches you can hold on this. So the reason why I thought that the Apple Watch would be a perfect watch to show you guys is because it has a decent case size, you know? Like compared to the Rolexes, like it has a decent case size. It's essentially the case size of a men's Rolex or a men's watch. Because this is intended to hold 3 men's watches or 4 women's watches. When they say women's, some of you guys are like, what's the difference? Like, because the case sizes on women's watches are obviously smaller. But for those of you guys who have vintage Rolexes or vintage watches, those ones tend to have smaller cases. So you guys should have no issue at all fitting 4. It might be kind of tight, but you can do it if you really want to. But yeah, the crowns are going to be close if you guys fit another one. But as I said, they're not really moving, so I wouldn't be too worried if I were you. But yeah, it's a pretty good fit. You guys can see. Pretty perfect. You know, like I honestly feel like this was a good purchase. Like I thought of it when I was buying it, I was like, damn, I'm really treating myself like I don't really need this case. But at the same time, I got it for a good price. Just like I get everything for a good price. I know you guys probably hear that all the time if you guys watch my videos, but I really do. I really do make money off of everything I buy because I get it at such good prices. And if you guys are interested in anything, you guys need anything, watches, jewelry, streetwear, designer, stuff like this, just DM me at Connor.Langley on Instagram, and I promise I will hook it up. You guys will not get better prices anywhere. But you guys can see it looks pretty perfect. It looks pretty awesome. This is what you're paying for. And I'll just close it up right here. And as I said, when I close it up, and I don't even worry about dropping it because I feel like this is really strong, and I have a lot of confidence in not only how thick the Louis Vuitton material is, but also because it has that that padding that I was telling you guys about. Like they have it on top of like a jewelry counter. They have that on the top, so even if you dropped it and there was some pressure, it's still going to be like a soft landing on it. So you guys can see right here. It's pretty fine. It looks just how I did when it was empty pretty much. And I just want to say that because some of you guys might be worried like, oh, having one button, like one hole right here, like I don't have any room to adjust. So is it going to be really, really tight and hard to close when I get my big face watches on in it? But I'm having no issue right now. I can actually tighten it a little bit. Like you can see, like there's some room, like it's not tight at all. It's pretty perfect. And this is exactly what you'd hope to be buying when you guys are buying this. And so hopefully if you guys are considering buying, it does give you guys a little bit of confidence in your purchase, because it's understandable to have second thoughts or to consider different options when you're deciding whether or not to pay so much money for it. Just so you guys know, when you guys are considering like, oh, what's a good price? I got this one for $575, which is really, really good. Because the second I bought it in a group with some of my buddies. I had DMs from other people offering me like $600 to $700. So if you guys can get it anywhere between $600 and $700-ish online, I'd say that that's a really good price. I'd pay no more than $800. I know retail is probably around $1,200-ish. Don't pay retail. Get it online from a trusted person. You can get it authenticated. You can meet in person. Even go on like OfferUp or something and just say, hey, will you meet me at a Louis Vuitton store to authenticate? If they're legit, they should have no issue. You might have to pay a little bit more because they might not want to use their gas, but it's worth it. You're saving a lot of money. But yeah, just giving you guys a final look at it. So pros, you can fit 3 watches, tight. This part doesn't get a lot of wear on it. It's perfect. It's pretty protected when you drop it. Cons, I mean, maybe I would want to fit more watches in it, but most of you guys aren't going to be bringing more than 3 watches on your trip. And also I wish that maybe, what else do I wish? Maybe if I had a spare one of these, just because even though, like I say, like I'm confident in it and it's tight and like it's not adjusting when I put watches on it, like I'd still feel a little bit more relief when I'm using it if I had a spare one. So I guess that's a con, but yeah, if you're considering whether or not to buy this for about $500 more than you would another watch case, just realize what you're paying for. Is it worth it to have the Louis Vuitton on it? Is it worth it for people to know? I mean, if you're spending this much on watches as I am, then I mean, it's definitely a compliment to the watches. You don't want to go cheap. It's like, I don't know, like you don't want to go cheap on something like this, especially if you're selling and flipping like me, because this just gives it an additional compliment when you're presenting it. All right, so hopefully you guys got something out of this video. Hopefully you guys got some confidence if you guys were considering buying. Hopefully it gave you guys some ideas if you guys are still looking. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at connor.langley.